has not lived up to the expectations of its citizens due to many reasons such as the bad leadership, corruption, impunity, strife and lack of adherence to the rule of law, among others.
Yes, Kieran, you could also list so many of them. Some of these challenges are wrapped around the lack of peaceful coexistence among Nigerians' diverse populations. The absence of this peaceful coexistence is also said to be a leading cause of the social, religious, as well as the political upheavals in the country.
And experts have established that achieving development cannot be possible in an environment where peaceful coexistence is absent. This perhaps explains the quote by great American civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So in our own circumstance, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can also do that."
Well, yeah, very aptly put. What this means in simple terms is that for Nigeria as a nation or any group to prosper, people must learn to live in peace with one another, despite the differences of faith, political views, ethnic affiliation, economic status, social standings, whatever it is in the society, wherever you find yourself on the side of the divide. That means the need for peace.
All right. Now, perhaps there's no time that Nigeria is in dire need for peaceful coexistence than now, when the nation is with many challenges, such as the Boko Haram insurgency, militancy, farmer-herdsmen clashes, different forms of crimes, as well as agitations from various sections of the country.
So, well, in the spirit of the Eid al-Fitr, we shall discuss the questions of peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, despite our differences, our diversity, which is supposed to be our strength and had been admired as our strength. What exactly do we need to do to make a difference and make life worth it living in Nigeria? Well, to achieve that on Good Morning Nigeria today, we'll be joined by our guests at that appropriate time.
Now, the second leg of our program today will be dedicated to highlighting the war against drug abuse and illicit substances in Nigeria as the world marks the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking.
Data from the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, shows that the agency in 2016 alone arrested a total of 8,257 suspected drug traffickers, comprising 7,720 males and 537 females. This is lower than the 8,778 arrested in 2015.
And a blessing, if you compare about 264,000 kilograms of different drugs seized from traffickers in 2015 to about 904 kilograms seized in 2016, then it appears that there is a cause to smile as the figures are dropping.
It's a cherry news, if I must say.
Yes.
Well, the biggest challenge, however, is the increase in drug use and illicit substances, especially among the young persons, as well as the dangerous connection between illicit drug trade, insurgency, money laundering, political instability, as well as terrorism.
Yeah, it's a very worrying combination indeed, and that is why we are focusing on this issue today as we examine what is being done to combat this menace. This is the outlook of our program today. I am Kieran Umayo, welcoming you to Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you on the Africa's largest TV network, the NTA. Eid Mubarak to our Muslim brothers and sisters all over Nigeria and wherever you may be watching us from across the globe.
And I'm Blessing Abu. I join Kieran to say Eid Mubarak as well, and happy holidays for those of you having your beautiful holiday at home. We are here at work because you have to see this as well. Now, in the course of the program, we shall bring to you our companion segments, which include the newspaper review, business reports, sports, foreign, as well as entertainment news. Now it's time for the morning news, and here's Larry Balhassan. Well, Eid Mubarak to you. I know you have to be here, but then we still have to wish you well alongside our other brethren of the faith.
Yeah, thank you, Blessing, and Kieran, Eid Mubarak to you too. Good morning and welcome to the news. Muslim Ummah in the northern part of the country joined their counterparts worldwide to celebrate Eid al-Fitr to mark the end of the Ramadan fast. Lydia Bassi compiled the reports from various states, which indicates that the celebrations were generally peaceful. Prayers were offered at various Eid grounds, with religious and political leaders calling for continued prayers for the nation, unity and tolerance.
We urge people to continue staying together in peace.
I urge all Nigerians to love one another.
And still on Salah, the wife of the president, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, joined the Muslim Ummah in observing the 2-rakat congregational prayer. Mrs. Buhari attended the prayer at Guards Brigade, Mambila Barracks, Eid Ground in Abuja.
Her Excellency Mrs. Muhammadu Buhari, the wife of the president, is extending her congratulations and best wishes to all Nigerians and the Muslim Ummah for the successful conclusion of our religious obligation during the holy months of Ramadan. She also requests Nigerians to continue with their prayers for Nigeria and for Mr. President. She also appealed to Nigerians to be patriotic in whatever they are doing, and we look forward unity, peace and development in this country.
Nigerians have been cautioned to live in peace and avoid reckless statements. This is contained in a statement conveying the Eid al-Fitr message of President Muhammadu Buhari to all Nigerian Muslims and Christians alike. In the statement made public by the President's Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, President Muhammadu Buhari added that the lessons of Ramadan include piety, self-denial, prayers and generosity to the poor and needy. The President also appealed to everyone to avoid reckless statements or actions against fellow countrymen and urged them to resolve to live in peace and unity in a great country which is the envy of many less endowed nations. And meanwhile, Acting President Yemi Osinbajo says the Buhari administration would remain committed to using the vast resources in improving the lives of Nigerians. The acting president, while receiving the Federal Capital Territory Muslim community on Salah homage, emphasized the need for national unity for the nation's resources to be fully explored.
It is so important that we work together to make sure that our country is able to take care of its millions of people, and this is what God expects of us. God expects us to take care of the poor, to take care of the suffering, to ensure that we use government resources only in such a way as to enhance the good of the majority of our people. That is what is expected of us.
And on security matters, the Federal Capital Territory Police Command, as part of ensuring the safety of the citizens, ordered watertight security at all entry and exit points into the capital city. The FCT Police Commissioner Musa Kimo disclosed that officers and men of the Police Command have also been deployed to embark on foot and motorized patrol.
We are poised more than ever before to ensure that we rid the FCT of hoodlums.
House on the Rock Cathedral along the Abuja Airport Road was Sunday afternoon gutted by fire, putting the integrity of the entire structure to question. Timothy Yusuf reports that no casualty was recorded in the inferno.
I got a call at about 10 minutes after 2. Interestingly, I was still in the building. I just left, and then before I got home, I got a call that there was fire in the building.
By the grace of God, we were able to contain the fire.
Almost every section is affected for now, and that's why we said that nobody should go in there now, because the integrity of the building is not good for now.
And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, has expressed Nigeria's desire to further strengthen and expand cooperation with Tunisia in economic fields, develop trade exchanges and benefit from the investment opportunities available in the two countries.
We face similar economic challenges, and therefore we have identified areas where we feel that the two countries can really achieve real concrete deliverables. Education, health, in the area of infrastructure development, ICT, information and communications technologies, renewable energies. We even talked about the mutual assistance and training of our diplomats.
And that's the news for now. Kirian and Blessing will be back after this break. Good morning.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Here's your order.
I think this is not exactly what we ordered. I ordered a Coca-Cola Zero.
No problem. I can give you 0 calories, 0 sugar, and a great Coca-Cola taste. Here's the Coca-Cola Zero you ordered.
Do it again.
You still look like you need a Coca-Cola. Why don't you sneak inside your bag? Wherever you feel, together be real, together enjoy.
And now to business. Economic diversification efforts shift to revenue mobilization as Nigeria plans to limit external borrowing by raising financing at home. Details with Amina Nijem in the business package.
Compliments of the season and good morning. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo is set to launch the Voluntary Asset and Income Declaration Scheme to the nation on the 29th of June 2017, outlining the federal government's plan to increase tax awareness and compliance and grant taxpayers a time-limited opportunity to regularize their tax status without penalty. The plan to be executed jointly by the federal and state governments concentrates on the national duty of all Nigerian companies and citizens to pay their taxes wherever their income is earned, wherever they reside, and no matter how rich they are. This is coming from the background that Nigeria's tax-to-GDP ratio is one of the lowest in the world at 6%. In addition to tax evasion, which leaves an unfair burden of payment on those who can afford it the least, Nigeria's poorest people. And still on the Etisalat story, following the deepening crisis between Etisalat and a consortium of 13 Nigerian banks over a syndicated loan of about $1.2 billion granted the telecom company by the banks. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, said the Apex Bank and the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, decided to intervene in the crisis in order to prevent job losses and asset stripping. Confirming the intervention of the two regulators in the loan dispute, spokesman Isaac Akorafo said although it should ordinarily not be the role of the regulator to decide how individual bad loans are resolved, the CBN believes that Etisalat is a systematically important telecommunications company with over 20 million subscribers that, if not well handled, may have negative implications for the banking system itself. And finally, the equities market closed Friday the 23rd of June on a negative note, thus extending the losing streak as the OSHA index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange depreciated by 2.45% to close at 32,122 basis points. Meanwhile, declaration of Monday and Tuesday as public holidays by the federal government means trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange will resume Wednesday, 28th of June 2017. And that's it on Business News. Good Morning Nigeria continues.
Thank you very much, Amina Najim. Now, up next on our lineup is the newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Altayabe, is already here in the studio. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Bayo. We're glad you're here, even though they're public holiday, to be part of the show. All right.
I'm sure you are enjoying your Eid al-Kabir mood. Good morning, blessing.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Eid Mubarak
Nigeria,
to you, Bayo.
and Eid Mubarak. Happy Salah resting day to all our brothers and sisters across the nation.
Okay. Kirian, you want to...
All right. Daily Trust now. Let's go to Daily Trust. And below the nameplate, mixed feelings as Customs commences first e-auction. Well, e-auction. And then the headline, Oshibajo, Buhari will complete his tenure. And you could see the photograph there. That's it's drawn by Emir Zazau and Sheikh Idris during the Hawa Salah Durbar in Zaria yesterday. Beautiful and colorful picture there. But below that, we have elite responsible for agitations, says the House of Reps. That's on page 3. And then 106 district heads take part in Zaria Salah Durbar on page 6 of a Daily Trust, as well as Naira stabilizes at 365 to a dollar. That's on page 22 of a Daily Trust.
Okay, to the New Telegraph now we go. Just above the nameplate, we have $600 million debt. 34 fuel tank farms owners risk bankruptcy. There is a rider to that. Lenders move to take over collateral. That story starts right there but continues on page 2. Leading for the New Telegraph is the story of Shimbajo to Nigerians. Buhari needs your prayers. Says president has a lot to offer the country. And there is a rider. Buhari speaks from London 48 days after traveling. The details you find on page 2. And you have the photograph or photographs representing activities marking the Eid al-Fitr across the nation. Article governors call for peace and unity. You'll find the details on pages 7 and 10. 2019, PDP, APC, chieftains seek alternative platforms. With a rider, delayed Supreme Court judgment paralyzes activities in the PDP. That's what you find on page 4. Okay, still on Salah messages, we have that's on the front page of the leadership. Eid al-Fitr in audio message, President Muhammadu Buhari thanks Nigerians for consistent prayers, warns against reckless statements. We will do everything to sustain Nigeria's unity. This is coming from Acting President Yemi Osinbajo. And President's speedy recovery, Nigeria's greatest Salah gift. It's coming from Cross River State Governor Ben Ayadi. APC urges Nigerians to pray for peace and unity. Bayo.
Yes, blessed, thank you. Yesterday's Eid al-Fitr celebration marked the festival of breaking of the fast. What it marks is the end of the 9th lunar month and the month of Ramadan. President Muhammadu Buhari has sent his greetings to Nigerians, and he enjoined all to abide by the lessons of Ramadan, which he says are piety, self-denial, prayer, and generosity to the poor and the needy. And as all Nigerians, we should all abide by these at all times. He says he preached peace and unity and warned against reckless statements capable of causing disaffection in the country. In the statement by Garba Shehu, the senior special assistant to the president urged Nigerians to live in unity and in peace. The voice message of the president has also been generating some reactions. Some papers are reporting it as an address. Some say it's a message. Actually, it was an interview clip. The discretion of an international reporter, the BBC reporter, interviewed the president, and the intention, according to news agency of report, was to clarify the falsity in the social media that the president has lost his voice and he's suffering from some speech impairment. And therefore, the reporter interviewed him in Hausa. It was aired on BBC Hausa, and that is being reported. However, there have been some reactions saying that the president cannot address the nation in Hausa. It was not a national address. It was an interview. And I can recall, Blessing, when I had a responsibility of regulating broadcasting, we had instances to invite these international reporters, and we tell them, when there is crisis, don't harp on casualty figures. They didn't understand. They thought we were trying to gag them and stop them from reporting. Until we proved to them that when you report that they have killed 100, in reprisal in the other parts of the country, they are going to kill more than 100. Therefore, your report has become accessory into increasing the crisis. So this reporter who got an exclusive interview ought to have done an interview in Hausa and English for the BBC English service and the Hausa service as well. But again, I don't blame him. He wants to be the first to get the exclusive for his
from
medium.
the president, yes.
And I blame also our media handlers. They tend to give prominence to foreign journalists than our own Nigerian journalists. If our Nigerian media had access, this misinterpretation and confusion would certainly will not have arisen.
This has been the case for a while now. Yes. It's not just in this particular circumstance, but in other circumstances. We'll take, for instance, when during the real fight for against insurgency, right? Discover that all the foreign media are giving a priority in terms of having access to those who have to make comments on those things. So you just raised a very pertinent point there. Now I have two more newspapers here, and the next is Independent, Daily Independent, and just below the name flag, ACF to FG, that's the Arewa Consultative Forum to Federal Government, deal with merchants of hate speech. The rider, why Arewa youths have not been arrested. That's according to the Voice of Nigeria's DG. Why Arewa youths have not been arrested. Okay, now on the right, you could see that of the Malaya issue, dead people, sign my recall, and I'd like Bayo to comment on this. That's on page 5. And then we have Evans kidnap Kingpins was arrested for robbery in 2006 on page 11. Then Southern leaders to the APC governors. That's also as part of headlines today on Daily Independent. And just besides that, we have Nigeria's unity not negotiable, or Shebajo insists praise for Buhari's quick recovery. And then below the photograph, we have Sultan tells government to probe sources of healthmen's weapons. That's a very critical one there. And this day, so that Bayo can come in after this. Okay. Presidency releases Buhari's recorded message to Nigerians, as we have read in some of the national dailies. That's this time around on this day. And our administration will unite Nigerians, says Oshibajo. That's the rider there. And then on the left side of the newspaper, 300 lawyers jostle for 10 positions at Federal High Court. And of course, that's all about it here on This Day newspapers. Okay, quickly before Bayo comes in, some other stories on the front page of the New Telegraph. Just below the nameplate, you have this stories. DSS, the Department of State Services, nabs Boko Haram commander and 20 other fighters. You find the details on page 8. Wike, as the governor of Rivers State, I dissolve cabinet to rejig machinery of government. That story we find on page 34. Abducted students, we had sad Salah without our parents, without our children. This is coming from the parents now, but you find the details on page 9. Bank robbery, mom got me out of police nets. This is coming from kidnapper Kingpin Evans. All the details on page 8 as well. Now, Bayo, quickly, for those who love to just pop the pain reliever from time to time out in their mouth, just for maybe what you could have taken as rest, at the foot of the page for New Telegraph, you have the story, paracetamol could harm masculinity as well as fertility of unborn baby. That story, find on page 31.
Yes, in fact, to collaborate that story, there was a time a drug was said, some of this pain reliever was said that it stays in the body for as long as about 3 months and it can harm. and therefore abusing them excessively can be very harmful to the human body. But still returning to what the message of the acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo has said that the Buhari-led administration will do everything possible to sustain the unity among citizens. He said this while receiving the SALA delegation led by the Minister of the FCT, Alhaji Bello, Mohammed Bello. He said, the acting president said, our unity is not negotiable. Gains of unity include love towards one another, integrity, and enjoying the endowments of the nations and gaining the respect of other nations globally. He said, your ethnicity does not matter. Unity is so important. For us, we must work together to make sure that our country is able to care for the millions we govern. We are praying every day. We know the Lord God Almighty, who we serve, will bring our president back in good health. And he added, he will serve this nation and complete the period in good health, and our country will be better for it. Right. Now, talking about the story about Senator Dino Melaye, he has already put faith and falsity to the list of those that has been compiled. And added to that, it is reported in some papers that he's already gone to court to stop the process, to stop INEC from the process of recall. Other issues related to Salah message is wife of the president, Haji Aisha Buhari. He has thanked Nigerians for their prayers for her husband. She also says that after observing Eid prayers in Abuja, she enjoyed all to imbibe the spirit of love, compassion, and a sense of patriotism. She says this will foster national cohesion, and he thanks Nigerians for praying for the good health of her husband and for praying for the nation. Governors across the nation have also enjoined in facilitating with Nigerians. Nearly all of them have called for national integration and love. The other outstanding message is from the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar III, and that was the story, Kirian, you read earlier on. He says, we Nigerians need to persevere on the lessons of Ramadan, which include patience, perseverance, and brotherliness. He specifically urged the federal government to probe the sources of weapons used by headsmen that are attacking Nigerian communities all over. He says those are not headmen because people who carry guns are criminals, and he enjoined government to investigate and arrest such criminals and treat them as such.
That'll be the best, Bayo. Thank you very much. We hope to see you again tomorrow. That's all we can take from the paper review this morning. Cherry News, rice to now sell for 13,500. This come from the Federal Minister of Agriculture and Development.
Oh, it's coming down.
In the next one.
Listen, Thank you very much,
Bayo.
happy for them.
We'll see you again tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day.
It's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll set the tone for the first part of our discussion this morning, taking a look at promoting peaceful coexistence in Nigeria.
The Future Assured project of the wife of the president, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, is carrying out free medical screening and distribution of food items at various IDP camps while ensuring the economic empowerment of women through training and skill acquisition. In recognition of her efforts, wives of governors have lent their voices and support.
In Kogi State, we feel the impact of Future Assured, especially in women and children.
The Future Assured program of Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, the wife of the president, has been very assuring and still reassuring in Sokoto State. It has impacted positively in the areas of humanity, especially women and children.
Supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
Introducing the new 5 Alive Pulpy Orange.
Where is the pulp? The pulp. Where is the pulp? Where is the pulp?
Taste the goodness of real orange pulp in every gulp.
Where is the pulp?
The new 5 Alive Pulpy Orange, now in your neighborhood.
Where is the pulp?
And now to set the tone for our discussion on promoting peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, here is Timothy Yusuf with this background report.
Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, is a nation whose endowments continue to marvel the world. Known for its rich mineral resources, the country is also regarded as one with tremendous human capital that makes it an envy of many nations. Sadly, the huge potentials of Nigeria are yet to be tapped after over 100 years of amalgamation of the nation and about 57 years of self-rule. Experts have thrown up many theories that account for the lack of progress in the nation, which include absence of good leadership, corruption, selfishness, ethnicity, insecurity, religious disharmony, and general lack of peaceful coexistence. Perhaps there is no time in the nation's history that the need for peaceful coexistence is more pronounced than now, when the need for development is needed and there are agitations from different sections of the country. As a nation that has proven to the world that it can work together despite its diversity pronounced in multiple ethnic, tribal and religious backgrounds, experts believe that Nigeria's current challenges can be turned to opportunities if there is peace, friendship and solidarity for peaceful coexistence and sustainable development. Whether differences emerge from religion, ethnic, tribal or political differences, the belief is that nothing is possible in an atmosphere of rancor, disharmony and conflict. The losses the nation has suffered cannot be allowed to continue if the much desired turnaround will be achieved. The responsibility of making this turnaround possible lies with all citizens, particularly those entrusted with leadership positions. Strengthen dialogue and cooperation between Nigerians of different persuasions, as well as encouraging justice, fairness, responsibility, the rule of law and tolerance will go a long way in making things turn around. Conflict prevention, peace building, reconciliation can lead to a society of morality, happiness, tranquility, security and prosperity. As Nigerian Muslims mark Eid al-Fitr, lessons from this time of deep religious exercise and reflections provide a good platform for guests on Good Morning Nigeria to discuss the imperative of peaceful coexistence in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Timothy Yusuf. Well captured in that background report, but we'll do more with our discussion right away. Now, joining us to discuss the subject of peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, I would like to introduce at this point the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, His Eminence John Cardinal Onayekon. Cardinal Onayekon, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Also joining us is the Imam Nuru Muhammad Khalid of the Legislative Juma Mosque Apo here in Abuja as well. Imam Muhammad, I'd like to welcome you to the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
And with us is Comrade Oke Ezala, a member of the Nigerian Youth Parliament. It would be very interesting to hear from the representative of the youth this morning. We welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, Mr. Ezala.
Oh, thank you very much, Kira. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, and to begin this conversation, we would like to begin with John Cardinal Onayekon. Now, is Nigeria short of the desire for peaceful coexistence, do you think?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question, because that was the first point in my mind. Namely, are we really aware that God has given us something that is precious called Nigeria? Do we believe in that? Something that is, we have, let's say, we have been given, which is worth keeping and worth developing. If we are not agreed on whether you really want a Nigeria, then the question of whether we want mutual coexistence in Nigeria becomes academic. And there are many people who do query whether you really want a Nigeria. And I think this is where the problem should start from, because you cannot have your cake and eat it. You cannot enjoy the good things of having a big country like Nigeria with its diversities and the famous natural resources we are talking about on the one hand, and on the other hand, not want that nation. And I think that is where our problem lies. Question of Nigerians living together in peace, I do not think it's something there's no option in that now. If we don't live in peace together, then we are not going to live in peace at all. We are not going to live together at all, because we cannot live constantly fighting one another.
All right, thank you very much, His Eminence. Yes, it's still within the season of Eid al-Fitr, a time to actually reflect on what we've done for the past 1 month. And I'm sure from time to time, Muslim as well as other religious bodies actually look forward to having this peaceful coexistence. This essential message at Eid al-Fitr today, how impactful is it in addressing this area of peaceful coexistence for us as a nation?
Yes, it is important to note that all the messages we have been passing throughout the Ramadan is reflecting on the importance of being together in peace. And many at times I do call the attention of Muslim faithfuls to remember that the Prophet ﷺ did a peaceful living with non-Muslims. So the point is, we must understand the need for us to live in this country as people. We are people, we are human first before we become religious. We are human first before we become Muslims. So we must address the issue of being human by carrying humanitarian activities together with our fellow Christians and other non-Muslims who are practicing even the traditional religion or any other religion. We must understand that life is so important to us and to everybody. And if we don't respect one another, there will be no peace. When you address your neighbor with words of abuse, abusive words, you are now creating chaos and havoc in the nation. So we must understand this, and that is all the messages we have been given throughout the period of Ramadan.
All right, let's go to the representative of the youth here, because when things go wrong, the youths are usually the instruments for destabilization from the experience the nation has had, over the years. Now, Comrade Zala, some have suggested that the lack of coexistence among Nigerians is some kind of elite conspiracy. Do you agree with that?
Of course, yes. You see, over time, Nigerians, especially the youth constituency, have learned to live together. If you go to Lagos, Kano, or even every other state in Nigeria, you see that Nigerian youths are well united. We don't have a problem. I don't want anybody to make it look like, oh, the youths are the problem of this country. No, we are not. We're only trying to dance on the music set by the others. And that's when whenever you notice any chance of conflict or anything going on in the country, you must trace it. You will surely see the hand of one elite or another. So I tell you, if the Nigerian elites can come together and decide, okay, these are our children, we want to bring them up in the path of national unity, I tell you, Nigeria will be better for it, and there won't be conflict anymore.
Well, Comrade Ezela, while as a young person, it's good we express our feelings. And if you say you're teetering towards what the elders are saying in court, these are the same crop of youth that still say the elders or the older generations have done what they could do with Nigeria. Why don't they give them the chance? If you are going to be following that path, what new narratives are the young people saying? I open the different media, the different parts on social media. What I hear or what I see are shocking, abusive words that you will just be so shocked in your mind to say, where did this one get their training? Where did they get their upbringing? Are those things that the elders are saying to you?
Exactly. That's just my point.
Some of the elders don't even know the way to the social media.
They don't know, but they talk to us at home. They talk to us in churches. Okay? There are so many organizations that the truth is, even in politics, you have the elders occupying almost all the space. So okay, let's take for a political party, for instance. You have a man of 55, 60 becoming a youth leader of a political party. That's ridiculous. So that's like subjecting the youth sector, to a very certain level that is difficult for them to grow and come up. Okay, let me come back to your question. You see, there is this African thing. We have a tradition respecting our elders. That is African. And so, but then we have to draw a line between respect and fear. Because we respect our elders, that is why we are bound to do what we see our elders doing. But there is this diminishing return of that respect. As soon as you respect over time, since independence, I will now see that this respect is rather yielding us misfortune, yielding us political apathy, yielding looting of treasury. Then that is where the issue of fearlessness now comes out. And that is why you see the youth now a kind of revolting now, saying, no, we have respected you, but we are not afraid of you. So we've got to stand and tell you the truth, which is, you have tried your best, you are our parents, you have done all you could do for us, but then can we just take our destiny in our own hands? I think that's just what the youths are saying this time.
Okay, yeah, I think he's made a very valid point there, because the elite set the pace and the youths follow. And the youths are usually more creative, By the time they become negatively creative, then it does affect the entire system. That is why what you see on social media is baffling and very scary, I'd like to bring us back to the issue of religion now. You know why? Because every youth or every citizen of this country belongs to one religion or the other. We also learned that these religions are meant to reshape our characters.
Yeah,
reshape
some don't
our
believe in some of this.
now, because there are 10 churches, there are 10 mosques and all of that, and even if it's Buddhism or Judaism or traditional religion, all these religions preach peace. Now, it depends on the adherents of these religions. Now, let me go back to on ECHO. Now, is it that the handlers of these religions, or the heads of these religions, like you are one here in Abuja, are not passing the message correctly, or that the followers or the faithful are not really adhering to the tenets of these religions?
The question you're asking is a multi-million naira question. I will come to it. I won't avoid it. But I want to talk to my brother or my son. Come right there. Is Allah. The situation we are now in Nigeria, I think, should not be seen as if it is the youth against we old people. Yeah, because as an elder, because at the age of 73, by any standard, I'm an old man. I've seen it all from 1966 until today. Yeah, and we are certainly not proud of what our generation has done. But I think what should be learned from this is that we learn our lessons. The youth obviously need the lessons of the experience of the old. Even if all you learn is a negative lesson about how things should not be done, that is still a lesson from the elders. By the way, don't forget that those who started this experiment called Nigeria, in terms of leadership, were almost all young people, your age. They were all your age. We now think of Awu, think of Zik, think of Madu Bello, because we see these pictures of old men. They were not. They were all young boys. And they were all young boys. Were there any girls among them?
It's a man's world.
They're all young boys. What I think you should learn from that is that it is possible for the youth to take their responsibility and stop saying that we are only dancing to the music which the elders are beating for us. No. At your age, you know what is right and should do it. Come back to religion. It is the good old story about what religion means. Religion is has to deal with the relationship between you and your God. So first and foremost, it's a personal thing between you and your God. Ever before you talk about any organized religion, ever before you talk about any religious leader. Now, if you go beyond the personal level and you come to the level of the organization within which leaders like me and Sheikh Ustaz Noura comes in, then you'll go to the level of religion as that has a whole range of values, doctrines that it, and I'll use the word ideals that are put out. And when you look at those things, you will find that Nuru and I will speak the same language about justice, about honesty, about worshiping God, about avoiding evil, about solidarity between every human being. And the issue here is the primacy of being a human being, first and foremost, child of God, which all of us are. There is this gap between the ideal and what actually happens on the ground. That is where the problem is. It is not as if the religions are not preaching the right thing. I hope they all are preaching the right thing, because nowadays we are not sure anymore what some people preach. But if we take at least the one that we know, if they preach the right things according to what we see in the major books of the Bible, we will speak the same language. And the people then are left to decide how much of it they are able to carry out. Those who go against the dictates of their religion know that they are doing it. They are not even challenging the dictates of their religion. They are only saying, well, it's true what you are saying, but you know, we are human beings. You know, that we have to. Man must survive, and in the struggle for survival, you cut corners. You try and see whether you can get it done better by ignoring the right way of getting things done. This is the problem we have, and here it's not only religion that has to work on it. The state has its own role to play. The whole issue of impunity, about rule of law, comes in also.
Your Eminence, still with you, aspects to words being given on the altar, on the pulpit, or wherever we choose to put out this word, are supposed to be edifying. But it will appear to be that some of the words even coming from some of these pulpits are no longer such that we edify the body, that is the adherents themselves. It is different from what we used to have or what's supposed to be. Why is it increasing so that we cannot actually achieve that, what we preach on the pulpit, different from what we say in the homes and even on the streets?
The scenario of religion in Nigeria right now is unfortunately quite complex. And every now and then, nowadays I begin to get a bit jittery when someone calls me religious leader, because I say there are so many people who go on that title nowadays with whom I have little or nothing in common. It is probably the price we have to pay in Nigeria for our freedom of religion, which allows anybody can get up anytime and set up his own religion here in this country and make himself whatever he likes. And the only thing I've not seen now, nobody has said he's a pope, but other things, and there's no rule against it. So because of that, we pay the price of freedom, which means you get ready to tolerate all kinds of things. But there should be a limit. There should be a limit. That's why we find that anybody, no matter if you call yourself Archbishop, Cardinal, or whatever, if you climb the pulpit and preach hate speech, you should be arrested as you come out of the church. You should be arrested.
All right, thank you, Your Eminence. Now let's just go to Imam. I really like you to look at the question I put to Your Eminence, you know, in connection with what is preached and what the adherents of different religions are doing. You know, does it reflect, you know, that we are obeying the tenets of these religions? I'd like you to come in there.
Okay, now if we set an example, had it been there is no preaching at all in Nigeria, what will be the situation? You see, to me, the clerics are doing their best. I mean, majority of the responsible clerics in the churches and in the mosques are doing their best. But the issue lies in there is no setting or ruling that will guide Nigerians about religion. that kind of notion we have that Nigeria is a secular state, I think Nigeria can equally maintain its secularity and regulate religious activities by putting some kind of rules that this is where preachers will stop. There is no go area. I mean, anything that has to do with security, we have to take it very serious, and we have to make sure that nobody tamper with it. His Eminence has said it right, that nowadays anybody can become a preacher, whether he has a training or not, whether he has the knowledge or not. The most important thing, he has something to tell the people, I want this and I want that, and I'm doing it in the name of God, and they will believe in him. So this is the problem. If we can address this problem, Nigeria will be at safe.
Comrade Zala, would you want to comment here?
Well, I think my fathers have said it all. Yes.
No, not again. And, because we don't know the youth perspective of religion. Many youths in Nigeria attend churches and mosques and what have you, yet they're part of
many of them are religious leaders. My reverend fathers, many of them are youths, so don't forget.
Yes, yes. Like I said before, you see, the youth constituency in Nigeria, they are more of enterprising people. When you come to a business environment or even a work environment and you find Nigerian youths, you see that they are not emphasizing religion, they are not emphasizing tribe, they are not emphasizing any of some of these sentiments. You see them talking about survival. That is just the problem of an average Nigerian youth. He wants to survive. He wants to compete with his peers across the globe. So, but when you now dig deep into their religious commitment, you find out that they are again doing the part of their parents. When you see one Okechuku in the East, ask him. He's a Christian today because he was born a Christian. His parents taught him the Christian way. You see one Umar Farouk in the North. He is not a Muslim because he is well convinced about Islam. Just like the man in the East, in the Southeast. He's Umar Farouk because that's the name the father gave him. And he was brought up to know Islam. So you see that, again, I go back to what I said earlier. It still boils down to the template set by our parents. Because this is Africa. If this were to be American, environment or anything, Western world, because that is where, as a child, from even 15 to 18 years, you already have a mind of your own. Not so in Africa. And we know that's just the simple truth. And we have to accept it.
Some youth might not be agreeing with you on that platform this morning. Because even from the womb, at least as a woman, I know it is said that you could speak to your fetus, as in the baby in your womb. So if you have that power, that willpower, that change, I'm sure that you could actually take on what is right. The religious body say, why are you a spirit being who knows what is right and what is wrong? At the different points of your life, the different stages you see, why would you know that if you go to touch fire, it's going to burn you? Definitely the instinct will be there and all of that. Well, what we're going to be doing to actually promoting this peaceful existence is what we're going to. Now I'm going to read a creed, which every one of us know from time to time. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend our unity. That unity is what is being threatened today, and that unity is what we're looking at to protecting today. This diversity is our strength. Imam, how do we begin to promote this? This is what is tearing us apart, disintegration. What do we do?
First of all, we have to understand that religion is meant for development, to develop personal spirit and to develop the society. If we understand that and we agree to be Nigerians, then we need to promote that unity. Without unity, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sitting next to you or next to my friend. It is important to also agree that the Almighty has a plan for us he does not make any mistake by creating Nigeria, by shaping us, bringing Igbo close to Hausa, Yoruba close to Igbo, Yoruba close to Hausa, Hausa to close to Tib and whatever language. God has not made any mistake. Therefore, we have to believe in that destiny, which both the religions teach, that it is designed by God to be in this area or that area. Therefore, if we accept that and agree that our development is not moving because we are fighting one another, the money supposed to be for developing our side is now to counter terrorism. It's eating our economy, it's eating our development, it's destroying the nation. Then why can't we now reflect back, ponder, and now think about promoting unity? Let's start preaching unity, and that is what we have been doing with His Eminence always.
All right, His Eminence, let's take a look at what recently Archbishop Emeritus Anthony Cardinal also made a position known recently at his 81st birthday. He said, I'm going to quote that, said, the scar of war remains. To avoid going to war is not cowardice. It is to have the courage to subdue our ego and negotiate. To go to war when we could and ought to have avoided it, it is not courageous but reckless. In the context of this, is Nigerians' challenge about coming together a serious one to surmount?
The statement of my senior brother is very true. What I want to put there is that it is much easier to beat the drums of war than it is to make peace. But making peace is by far the most noble thing to do. That is why the few young men in the Arewa who made that statement, it's very easy to do that. But to actually get people together is a much more tedious task, but a task that must be done. Apparently this particular session, maybe with the exception of my son here, since I am now an old man, the session of my son here, the focus is on religion. I just want to make it clear that unfortunately, every time we are talking of unity in Nigeria, people seem to say that one of the major problems is our religion. Unfortunately, this is an error because it is built on a wrong understanding of religion. Built on this wrong understanding of religion. But we who are within religion, we have to take note and recognize the fact that for many people, we are the problem. How do we get over this? But try all we can to, the way we preach the religion, to make sure that it is preached with a sense of the unity of the nation. And the religion that I practice, my Catholic faith, there is everything in it to make me live in peace with my Muslim brother, because I see we have common grounds. I believe, and I certainly believe strongly, that we are one God, which is the biggest of all our dogmas, that there is God, one God and not many. So His God and my God, we are the same. If we are able to convince ourselves about this, then religion is no longer a cause of disunity. It can actually be the strongest gum for the unity of our nation. And our Constitution says very clearly, one nation under God.
All right, thank you, Your Eminence, John Cardinal Oneko, and of course, Imam Nuru, where you've made a valid point, on this very topic. Now, let's look at other aspects of this discussion with respect to ethnicity. Religion, yes, but of course, we've been talking about peace, coexistence for the past 50 years of our existence or more. And now, does ethnicity play a role here? Because as Blessing did point out earlier on, what we get on social media, reflects some level of ethnic bias and what have you. And I'd like Imam to come in here. And are we going to have a platform for dialogue that can enable Nigerians sit back and say, look, we've come a long way, but we've not gotten it right? Because if after over 50 years we are still talking about peaceful coexistence, people are still using religion to prove whatever is their belief, right, that means we really need to do our job well. What are we supposed to do in this connection, Imam?
Well, we have to, first of all, face the reality. The reality is we are not doing the right thing as a nation. If I go to one section of the country, I will consider myself as a foreigner, as not part of that place. When someone comes to me, I will take him as a foreigner, not as a Nigerian. We must address one issue, the issue of indigenship in Nigeria. Is very important. When someone serves the nation to the level of PAMSEC now, he wants to be, he is a director, he is due for promotion to PAMSEC. Now we'll start asking from what part of the nation
is he from?
Yeah, and this is ridiculous.
Yes, unfortunately it has.
It's very unfortunate. He served the nation, he served Nigeria, and now he is due for promotion. You are asking what part of the country has he come from. He will lose that position if his quota is filled. So you can see we must address the issue of indigenship. Let's promote national ID card instead of indigenship. 2, when we talk about our languages, when someone is working in the federal level and he is now speaking his local language in the office, you know, he's promoting a kind of chaos in the country. That is why when you appoint somebody at the higher level and he is a minister or what, look at his entourage. You will see them all from one part, from his own area. So we have to address all these kind of issues as a country to make Nigeria one and to make Nigeria great.
All right, Blessing. That's one issue here, because if you look at the nation's constitution or the documents that are regulating our operational methodology in governance, you discover that indigenship is part of it. That is this quota that we talk about. It even affects people who are working in establishments. When it's time for you to be promoted, they will begin to check how many people are in that position from your own part of the country. It is like it's enshrined. And again, it's obvious, you know, that even at the National Assembly, there are committees, you know, that are there to ensure that there is an equitable distribution of scarce resources with respect to positioning or positions of authority in this country. Please come in here.
We have been hearing very often that those things you say are enshrined in the Constitution. We are all saying now that a lot of those things enshrined need to be reviewed. After we have been talking about reviewing our Constitution, and for me, that's one of the areas. There are also, with all due respect to Alhaji Nurul, you know, many people are also pointing at the position of Islam and the Sharia within our Constitution, which they insist must be looked at if we really want a peaceful country. We must be ready now to put everything back on the table. So that is enshrined doesn't mean it is cut in stone. Everybody in Nigeria, after all, this Constitution was given to us by the military regime, who went through the work of the Constitution Drafting Committee. In their own wisdom, they decided what was going to stay, what was going to go away, just as they have tampered with that Constitution during the time they were there without asking anybody. So we have a piece of paper on our hands, and we should not allow that to stop us from making progress. There's only one point I wanted to make with regard to, you raise ethnicity. We started with religion, and you raise ethnicity, all in the context of unity of Nigeria. I will hope that we should not forget that there's something wonderful in this country, that we have religious differences, we have ethnic differences, but
I said cultural differences?
Well, cultural, ethnic. But our ethnic differences and our religious differences, thanks be to God, crisscross. Yesterday I was at Mass on Sunday. A huge crowd was in front of me. We are all Catholics. We feel like we are brothers and sisters. We walked up together to receive communion. Nobody is asking, where do you come from? That means in the church there, our ethnic differences was already leveled. The same thing will happen, must have happened yesterday during the Eid Fitri celebration, which means that religion can actually be a glue to help us bring our different ethnic cultures together. But even when we take of ethnicity, when I go back to my village and we have our village meetings, the Muslims, there are not too many in my town, but there are some Muslims. They are part and parcel of our village meeting, and we are all brothers at home. We don't ask whether you're a Muslim or you're a Christian. We are just Kaba people, sometimes the same family, and we work together. If it is possible to do it, then it means Nigeria has to learn how to live with our differences and see our differences not as a cause for separating ourselves and for fighting, but a cause for unity. And this is a lesson the world needs. We are talking of Nigeria because our country is very special. God is very good to us. Our country is very special in the sense that we have almost equal number of Christians and Muslims and huge numbers of Christians and Muslims. 80 million. There's nowhere else in the world you have that. But this is practically, for me, a model for the rest of the world, because we now live in a globalized world where we used to talk about Middle East Muslims and Western Christians. But we can't say that anymore, because in the middle of America, there are Muslims. In the middle of the Middle East, there are Christians. Just like we no longer, it is completely wrong to talk about the Christian South and the Muslim North. There's no such thing. There are Christians in the north and there are Muslims in the south.
All right, gentlemen, well, before we get to comrades, we have reactions already from members of the public who are watching this. We'll quickly take a look at this, and we'll take a look at what next to do to actually still strengthen that which we have as diversity and our strength. From Dele Jack Solomon, we have this tweet: in order for Nigerians to live peacefully, it's important for individuals to rise above their differences. Dialogue is needed for promoting peace.
Then from Aminu Modibo, he says the road to Nigeria's peace is still far because of the actions and inactions of the present generation of our leadership.
From Sani Michael Amakaji says nepotism, regionalism, sectionalism indoctrinated into our system are factors that have hampered our peace over the years.
And from Dele Jackson Solomon once again, benevolent moderators, guidance and counseling should be employed in conflict prevention, management, resolution and transformation in Nigeria.
Comrade Tomori Abdul says peace has no alternative.
Just as Chris Manuel says, before we talk of peace, coexistence, let's first talk of equal justice, equal freedom, equal rights, shun lies, and apologize if you are wrong.
Law Alpha C has this tweet: the lessons of Ramadan, like other Christian celebrations, should transcend utterances made by their adherents. Let's desire to think love. Okay, now Dele Jackson once more. He says, thank you for bringing up this topic as subject of discuss today. It is timely and well spot on. We say Barakah de Salah to all Muslims. And at this point, let's bring in Ezala, Comrade Ezala. We've raised the issue of ethnicity and all of that. How does that play out within the youth constituency?
Yes, thank you very much. I think God did not make any mistake bringing us together as a people. And nobody should think that because we are together, then I have right to attack His Eminence, or he has right to intimidate me because I'm a younger person. Nobody should bother thinking about that. One of the mails read that we should first of all talk about equal justice, equal right. Be good to your neighbor, then peace will naturally come. It is a waste of time or an act of futility for anybody to be expecting peaceful coexistence and unity where people are not just to another, where the right thing are not being done, both by the government and even the governed. So talking about tribe, God has made us who we are. God has made me an Igbo man. He didn't make me an Hausa man. He didn't make me Yoruba. And so he has also made my Kunle friend a Yoruba man. That is our differences. It is now our duty to go beyond, leverage on that, and now tell ourselves, how do we cohabit without having to infringe on each other's right? That is where the equal rights and equal justice comes in.
So who are those people to be doing this? Because everyone seems that we must do.
Thank you. Everybody. The government must see that to be done. And the government should also stand up and speak out. You see, it is a crime for right-thinking people to keep quiet in the face of injustice. People should stand up for their right. Stand up, speak up. Why Western world seem to be thriving in all this, good life is because even the citizenry herself are standing up to the challenge of governance. They don't just leave it for the government. And then the tribe, I want to say something about what His Eminence said
because we must get
about
a
constitutional provision. You see, the quota system in our laws, to me, are fine, fantastic, piece of legislation. It's because if you must recognize different ethnic groups in Nigeria to give them a sense of belonging.
What about
if you must cure this agitation?
What about merit?
Good. Merit can only thrive when people are pacified. Merit, you must be satisfied first before you can talk about merit. Because whether we like it or not, some part of this country are far more educated than another region. That's the truth, whether bitter or sweet. So if you're looking at merit alone and sacrifice national unity and sense of belonging, that is why we are where we are.
Well, that is another justice we must look. Imam Nuruddin, your final thoughts. Need for peaceful coexistence. Where do we begin to start all of this?
Let's start with our politicians and our elites. We must address the issue of unity in Nigeria. Being elite means you are a leader. You are to lead people to unity, not to destruction. And also the clerics supposed to do the same thing, and every Nigerian must live in unity, because without unity there is no peace.
All right, Your Eminence, your final thoughts on this.
Sheikh says we should start with the politicians. I would say everybody must start with himself.
Thank you.
Everybody must start with himself. Like, if I'm a Yoruba man, what is my immediate reaction when I meet an Igbo man? Can I, at least at that level, open up and realize that we're all brothers and understand that we belong to the same country? When we are abroad, it happens often, You meet an Igbo man if you are in Sweden. Oh, my brother, because you are in Sweden. When you come home, it's a different story. So I think a lot will happen if we, even individually, are able to arrange our own mentality to embrace people and to think about being fair to everybody, and forgiveness is part of it. One of the speakers, one of the tweeters spoke about, among other things, says readiness to apologize when you are wrong. Add on to that also readiness to forgive, even those who have not apologized. Because if you are waiting until everybody apologizes to you, there will be no peace. So this is a job for all of us.
All right. Thank you very much, Your Eminence. It's at this point that we close this leg of the conversation this morning, and we'd like to thank His Eminence John Cardinal Onayeko, the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation.
Thank you, and may God grant peace to our nation.
And of course, also Comrade Oke Ezala, of the Youth Parliament. Thank you for coming from the youth perspective.
Thank you very much, and may God give us peace.
Also, we'd like to thank Imam Nuru Muhammad, Khalid of the Legislative Juma Mosque, Abuja. We appreciate your time and insights into this discussion this morning. Also say Eid Mubarak. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Eid Mubarak.
All right. We'll go on the break now. When we return, it will be time to take a look at the second conversation, which is on the illicit drug use as we celebrate World Drug Day.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. Not be only to connect lights. Come you and yourself now. Now wow. Oh boy, calm down now. Oga Kasali electrician, who would they look for with this? Oh, Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer because change begins with me.
Oh boy, letting him talk makes sense. Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from over.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a no-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the Office of the Academic Secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
You are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA on a Saturday. Now, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, held a press briefing in Abuja last week where it said the war against drug abuse in Nigeria has recorded substantial success based on the number of arrests and seizures by the agency. Chairman and Chief Executive of NDLEA, Colonel Mohammed Mustafa, addressed the news conference in Abuja. Let's now hear the details from our own Kunle Adeye.
The indulgence in drug abuse and illicit trafficking has undoubtedly inflicted indelible pains on the people, with the society not spared of this menace. The NDLEA says strict compliance with strategies by its operatives has been the turning point in the fight against drug abuse in the country, emphasizing that the daunting task requires an all-inclusive approach.
The agency arrested a total of 8,257 suspected drug traffickers. Of this number, 7,720 were male and 533 were female. Illicit drugs weighing 206,947.57 kilograms were also seized.
Colonel Mohammed Mustafa Abdallah says the agency also engages in the rehabilitation of repentant drug addicts, noting that international cooperation is what is needed to nip in the bud illicit trafficking. He, however, described the political will of government to fight the trend as motivating.
Thank you very much, Kunle Adeye. Now, our guests are joining us from Lagos studio. We'd like to introduce the Director General of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Mrs. Rolly Bode George. Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Bode George.
Nigeria. Thank you for having me on.
Lagos studio is Glenn Pritchard, the representative of the United Nations Office for Drug and Crime. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Mr. Pritchard.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, now let's begin by looking at the theme for 2017 International Day Against Drugs and Illicit Trafficking, which is Listen First. Listening to your children and youth is the first step to help them grow healthy and safe. What is this focus? Nigeria appears to have made progress in the number of arrests.
Yes, thank you. Yes, you know that the theme Listen First is actually a theme that has carried on from last year because global policymakers have realized that the importance of the need to listen to our children who are the most vulnerable to substance abuse. So basically what we're trying to do is to get parents, basically we want to start from the family, parents, policymakers, teachers, all those that have to do with youths to listen. When you win their confidence and win their trust, then you are also able to tell when they have difficulties and problems, because from a lot of counseling, we know that most of the children that get onto substance abuse are usually those that have some kind of underlying problem. It's really an underlying problem somewhere. They say there's a dysfunctional family, there's no one to talk to. So that's the whole idea, is that win their trust, listen to them, let's see what the problems are, help them to deal with issues, tell them what drugs are about so that they don't have to learn from outside. So basically, that's what Listen First is about.
Let Mr. Pritchard come in here too on the issue of the theme for this year, which is Listen First. Mr. Pritchard, how does this go down, you know, to send any message across to the dealers?
Yeah, this message is actually targeted at the general population rather than at dealers. It's looking at preventative measures. There's a strong influence that if you invest in prevention, it saves a lot of money down the track. It's thought that for every dollar you invest in a prevention program, you'll save $15 in relation to health issues, law enforcement issues down the track. So this is the theme of it, that, as my colleague rightly pointed out, there's a lot of underlying reasons why people first use drugs and why it becomes problematic drug use. And that's what the theme is, making us stop and look at those particular issues in a preventative way rather than looking at the issue after it becomes a real issue for society.
So it's talking about, potential dealers, but because the youths need to listen to their parents to know the truth about drugs. Blessing, let's take this discussion further. To the growing number of drug users across the country, particularly among the women folk. I would like to ask the Director General of NDLEA to come into this, come in and take on this particular question. How is it? There's a growing number of drug users, according to reports.
A number of drug users, but you know, the truth of the matter is that we've always been quiet about this thing. We've always put it under the carpet. I know that it's in the north especially. We find out that there's a lot of abuse of substances that are even actually legal, because people always talk about hard drugs related to narcotic substances. But a lot of substances that are legal, like codeine, benylin with codeine, going to the pit, latrine, and all that. All those things are things that substances that actually harm the body and cause addiction and dependence. But in the north, it's more pronounced, and it's terrible because the culture is such that you cannot actually get to the people. But what we're trying to do, and one of the things we must say, the Northern Women's Governors' Wives Forum has put up an initiative where they can reach these women folks and help them with this problem, because most times people don't even know where to go for help. So part of the thing we're trying to do is create awareness, sensitization, do a lot of advocacy, and use community-based organizations and NGOs to reach this target audience, because we have different vulnerable groups. We have the youths, we have a lot of the women folks who have now become very dependent. But the truth is that we need to start to develop initiatives that are targeted to the different vulnerable groups. Because it's not just the women as well. We also have those who are like sexual workers who also have their own issues as well. So we're targeting different things for the different vulnerable groups to make sure that there's no exclusion in this area of getting drug treatment for people who are dependent on drugs.
Still with you, DG, drug trafficking, illicit use of drugs and different areas of illicit substances being found in the country now is taking another dimension. Of course, it used to just be a social and criminal problem, but now there is a major threat about health concerns, especially in areas of security as well, and health. How is this new challenge being tackled from the office and other support you're getting?
Well, first of all, it's good that Nigerians know that we're on the third master plan. We do have a master plan, and what does the master plan say? It's actually all 35 departments ministries, departments, and agencies of government that have to do with relevant to this issue, coming together to have a holistic approach to tackling the issue of drugs. So this approach now, we have 4 pillars. We have the law enforcement pillar, which deals with trying to get our drug barons to stop them from trafficking in these things and bringing the substance in. Then we have the drug demand reduction pillar, which is to help people who are dependent or who are struggling with dependency to get treatment. And then we have the narcotic access and control, and this is for those who need palliative care, because we can't say because, okay, there's a drug problem, then people who have cancer or having backache, elderly people will not have access to these control medicines. So and then we have the monitoring M&E, which we call monitoring and evaluation pillar. So this is the new plan, and what we have done is, look, instead of having different ministries doing this, let's have a holistic approach to the problem. So we all come together, we work out, we have different activities under the master plan, and based on that, we now have interventions. For example, I'll give you in the area of Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health now has 11 centers, and they're now doing research in these 11 centers to target people who have health-related issues to deal with that come out as a result of this drug dependency. We have NACA, the Agency for HIV and AIDS. They also now have a toolkit that target people that are dependent on drugs, but also with HIV area, so that people that also have HIV/AIDS can also be treated along with their dependence on drugs. So there are different aspects. Then we have the unplug, which is where Ministry of Health, which anchors that. And Ministry of Health, what they're trying to do is that, okay, we want to target our children at the age of 14. It's an evidence-based program that has been identified by the United Nations as being scientific, and will help get our children off, create an awareness and make sure that they don't get dependent on drugs. Then we have the NDLA aspect where they do the counseling, and we have advocacy. And then we have road safety. So it's a holistic approach, but it's in the master plan. You can access the master plan on our website. And also you can, there are soft copies. If you go to any of the ministries, the 35 ministries, departments and agencies of government, you can access the master plan, which has activities that are running. We're halfway through the master plan, and we're actually going through a midterm evaluation around in a few weeks. But it's a holistic approach. We're taking it from different aspects: law enforcement, access and control, drug demand reduction, and we're monitoring all this to see what is working and what is not working. Whatever is working, we continue. Whatever is not working, we go back to the table. For example, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago to look at the things that were working and what was not working. So it's a holistic approach by government.
So with you, DG, the NDLA also complained of inadequate manpower and equipment to actually contain the huge drug market. How are you addressing this issue of manpower to actually check out some of these areas that you have constraints?
It's very unfortunate. NDLA has under 5,000 staff, and we're supposed to operate in 774 local governments, and we have 170 million Nigerians. And I ask you, how in God's name are we going to be able to do that with such limited staff? But I want to thank Mr. President, who gave us approval to recruit 15,000, but as I speak with you, we've not recruited one because we don't have the funds to recruit. It's one thing to get the approval, it's another thing to get the funds to back off these approvals. So we're still waiting for these approvals, and unfortunately, we're constrained by equipment, and we're constrained by not just the equipment, and also the funds. I remember somebody asking a drug dealer, oh, you are prosecuting cases, but I asked you don't know how much it costs us to even prosecute one case, or to carry that case to the appeal court, and from them the appeal court to the Supreme Court, because drug barons have money, and so they can go the extra mile. And in case of logistics, we need the cars, because obviously you're going to you do undercover work. Sometimes you have to go with Okada, sometimes we dress up like crazy people on the street just to get intelligence. So this requires money. And to get intelligence is not cheap. Everywhere in the world, there's always a vote for intelligence, but it is just so minimal. We keep appealing to government, and we have their ears. They've been very, the Minister of Finance, we spoke to her, and the PAMSEC, they have been actually very forthcoming, and we're hoping that now that the budget has been passed, that they will look into it. And also we must thank the chairman for both the Senate and the House Committee, because they've had our ears, and also they're also trying to do advocacy for us so that we can get these funds that we need. But we really are underfunded, and that's just the honest truth. I was just teasing with somebody that NDLA actually brings the water out of the rock, and now somebody joked we even are bringing oil out of the rock as well.
Thank you very much, DG. I can feel the energy in you. Thank you for that submission. But now going to Mr. Pritchard, you are a UN representative, the Office for Drug and Crime, and you know very well that when it comes to illicit drug business, whatever drug that exists here, part of them usually find their way into Europe or America. So it's like a global thing. It's a kind of global business. Now, the DG has told us that the NDLEA has some constraints which had to do with inadequate manpower and the equipment to discharge their responsibilities. Now, what level of collaboration exists between you and, of course, the NDLEA?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. The UNODC is implementing a project that is fully funded by the European Union. The project started in 2013 and runs until the end of 2019, and that's in line with the National Drug Control Master Plan. Our main focus is in relation to building capacity, bringing about change management within the NDLEA. Much of that is training on international best practice. What limited resources they have, learning how to better use intelligence, how to collect intelligence, how to analyse that intelligence, and how to disseminate and value add to that intelligence, and to make the rest of the bigger drug barons. We also support other agencies and ministries such as the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education through prevention programs, as the DG mentioned, and also in relation to, we've created 11 model drug treatment centres with the Federal Ministry of Health, and we've built a lot of capacity. We've trained over 1,200 health practitioners in relation to drug treatment in Nigeria. If I go back to the law enforcement, we've trained over 1,600 law enforcement officials from 7 different agencies in relation to different training such as intelligence, money laundering, investigation techniques. This is all building a stronger capacity to make the limited resources work stronger and more effective.
Thank you. I'm still with you, Mr. Pritchard. Now, there are collaborators when it comes to drug business. There are international collaborators. And as a UN staff, do you offer any kind of advice or suggestions, or do you have any mechanism by which you try to track the perpetrators on the other side of the divide, that's from between Nigeria and other nations that collaborate in this business? Is there any of such a collaboration existing between the UN Office for Drug and, of course, the NDLEA to ensure that the network is disconnected? Does that exist?
In terms of the project's role from the UNODC's perspective, we're very much of a capacity building rather than an operational partner in relation to drug trafficking. We assist in terms of building partnerships with international counterparts and leveraging off those partnerships. We work to build and facilitate those partnerships, but actually getting involved in the transfer of information and intelligence, that is something that we leave to the NDLEA in terms of their operational capacity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Preacher. We'll still come back to you. DG Rolly Body George, now let's take a look at the link between insurgency, money laundering, political instability, as well as international terrorism, Nigeria and elsewhere. And now, issue of borders have actually affected this fight against illicit drugs.
First of all, let me say, I'm glad that you asked this question. Let me first of all say that every crime, most of the crimes that are committed are actually committed under the influence of hard drugs, narcotic drugs. And it's also unfortunate that Nigerians are yet to understand the input and the importance that drugs does to even terrorism. First of all, true, yes, we use the war model in combating terrorism in Nigeria, which is the militant approach, but that's just 20% of the whole thing. The truth of the matter is that in our border, we have very porous borders, unfortunately. And that is worsened by the fact that we do not have the personnel to man the borders. But now, we've now moved from being reactive to being proactive. As my colleague did say, we're now doing intelligence-led policing. And the only way that we can cope at this point in time is to go the intelligence-based model. That is to look for intelligence, work with intelligence, and work with international partners. So what do we have? For example, on our borders now, we have in the airport, we have what we call the AirCop, which is a joint task force of the different agencies and security agencies of government to ensure that we do not have any infiltration of drugs within the airport. Now, at the sea land borders, we have other agencies like Custom that we work with. And so what happens is that we share intelligence. So the first area is to ensure intelligence within the departments and agencies of government. For example, if custom feels, okay, there's a container that under suspect that they were watching, or through intelligence, we need, okay, this is, then we come together, we do a joint inspection, and then we get our sniffer dogs, they sniff, and most of the big arrests and seizures we've done have been at the port, because a lot of them were brought into containers, pipelines, and things like that. So that's the first thing. And as the issue of terrorism, I always say to people that, yes, and all this, people say about drugs, but at the end of the day, national security is about development. It's not just about, okay, yes, we go toward this. And even the issue of drugs, we have to realize that we have to go back to social welfare. Once the well-being of your nation is not taken care of, drugs input will always continue, and once the drugs are on the input, then there's a crime, and once there's crime, then there's transnational organized crime, then there's, and you know, the truth of the matter is that I always look at the judiciary, which is an important partner in this fight. The thing about terrorism is that it's sponsored, and so criminal wealth is always what is used to sponsor terrorism. And so when we bring down the drug baron, it's not just enough to arrest the drug baron, it's to go after the wealth, because we don't go after his criminal wealth. What happens is that money goes back into the circle and into the chain, and then it's now used to fuel other transnational organized crime, which terrorism also is a part of, things like kidnapping. So if, for example, a kidnapper is caught and you've taken all his money, you've broken down his houses, you've taken all his money in the bank, it's going to be unlikely for him to rise up again. So it's a collective effort, and it's something that is collective shared responsibility. It's not just about ND alone, it's about everybody, and also the community. Because we've reached a stage now in Nigeria where the community has to get involved in the fight. Because your neighbor next door, I don't know your neighbor. I mean, NDL, if you bring the intelligence, yes. But you and I know the person who is at home, who goes out only at night, who is taking drugs, who is selling drugs. Most times, most of the arrests we've done has been from intelligence. So the thing to do now is to make sure that these borders are still intelligence at the end of the day, because we don't have the resources to keep monitoring every state. The borders are porous. But with intelligence, international cooperation between departments, agencies of government, and also the community, I'm sure we'll do a better job. Not as we're doing a good job as it is, but we can do better.
Mrs. George, you know, from your experience as a DG of NDLEA, are the laws against drug abuse and trafficking adequate enough in Nigeria for you to operate hitch-free? And do you require further legislation to make your job easier?
First of all, let me say that in line with international best practice, there are a lot of areas of our laws that need to be addressed. First of all is in the area of sentencing. That's one. The judges have a lot of leeway as to how much they can give. So if a guy has been arrested even for having a meth lab that can kill almost 2,000 people if they're living in a house in less than 2 hours or 2 days, that guy could be given, from the judge's discretion, could be given maybe 4 or 6 months. So what we're trying to do is, I think, is to try and reduce, we as an agency believe that if we can have a little more evenness above this, the way that these sentences are passed out, that's number one. And two, also, is also in the area of criminalization. But right now, internationally and globally, it is seen that people that take substances, that use substances, are actually not criminals. They're people who need help. If I have a brother or sister who is on drugs, he's actually not a criminal. What basically is someone who is sick, who has like blood pressure or you have diabetes. So I think that's an aspect of the law that needs to also be addressed, so that we also, and let me first of all say that NDLA does not criminalize people that use drugs. We do not criminalize. We actually criminalize those that carry and sell. But the truth of the matter is that the law, people always look at it and say, maybe because this is what NDLA does, it's not what they do. But maybe if that is addressed in a different light, or that law is looked into, maybe it would help. And also, I think also there's also this area where there are a lot of areas that need to be addressed in areas of cooperation, or like, for example, let me give you a typical example. Lately, there was trade facilitation. Talk about trade facilitation. But I agree, we need to facilitate trade to bring in income for the country. But the truth of the matter is that, what is trade facilitation if there's no security? And I say we cannot put the cart before the horse. So at the end of the day, these are little things that the law is there, but it needs to be fine-tuned. And in all fairness to the National Assembly, I really want to thank the members of the House and the Senate Committee on Drugs, because they've actually listened to us, and we're all waiting for they've had a public hearing, and we're hoping that will go to the next step.
So much, DG, NDLA. Now back to Mr. Preacher. Yes, UNODC is doing so much to support in different areas, and I'm sure there are shared reviews from other parts of the world on what they're doing to actually stem this tide. Now, what other things do we need to do as a nation? Nigeria, of course, is demonstrating its own strength to actually fight illicit drugs as well as other areas of crime. What other things do they need to do to actually demonstrate this strength?
I think it comes back to some of the points that the DG rightly made in terms of being evidence-based. We first of all have to understand the nature of the issue. Up until now, Nigeria doesn't have a full perspective of what the drug use issue in Nigeria is. What are the harms that come from drugs? The project has supported a national drug use survey earlier this year and late last year, the results of which will be out later this year. This will, for the first time, give Nigeria a national perspective, state by state, of the prevalence of drug use in this country, and that will inform policymakers in relation to how better to deal with these issues. But in terms of doing things better, Nigeria's on a very good pathway. The project's been able to support, they've been very responsive to the support that we've been able to bring in terms of international best practices, intelligence-led policing. It was only a few years ago that if a drug arrest was made and they'd say found 1 kilogram of cocaine, that was the end of the drug investigation. Now NDLA operatives understand that's the start of the investigation. That intelligence will lead to a bigger investigation. Who supplied that drug? Who is it getting supplied to? Who is funding it? All of these issues are now very much important and very much a part of the operating model of the NDLEA. So there's still some work to be done in terms of getting proper systems in place. And once this comes back to some funding issues, but with the support that the project's given through the European Union and the UNODC, we believe that they're on a good pathway.
All right, now back to the DG. Madam, for the final question for you this morning, let's look at the issue of drug demand reduction and your efforts towards rehabilitation of those who are already neck deep into drug usage. What have you been doing with respect to rehabilitation?
My colleague did say, I told you that is a collective, it is a collective responsibility now. First of all, the NDLA does have counseling centers all over the Federation where you can get, if it's, but let me first of all say that addiction dependency is at different stages. If you're at the stage where you're not sick, if you're at the stage where it's, we have what we call the assist, which is the WHO assessment of a person when you come into rehab. So if you come into any of our offices, we'll do the assessment. If it's above 27, it means that you're actually not a candidate for counseling. So we refer you to any of the treatment centers, and we have 11 across the country, like my colleague did say. But if then it's something that has to do with counseling that can be done with counseling, then we take you in based on the assessment. And so we have different ways of dealing. We do advocacy, which we do in schools, which we do across the country. Then now NDLA, we now introduce something, and we're actually the first in Africa to use social media to try and sensitize people on the problems of drugs, and you can get online counseling as well. So we have a Twitter handle for NDLA, and also we now have online counseling. It's not, because of the funding, it's not as vibrant as it should be, but now you can call 24/7. We have a 24/7 counseling line where if you need counseling, not just for those who are dependent on drugs, but also for those who care alongside, because most of the time, people who are dependent on drugs, it's actually their carers that actually are worse off, and they actually need help because emotionally they're also distraught. So we have that counseling line. Also, we have, we're also on Twitter. And we try to put information out on Twitter so that people ask, which is so funny when we get questions, and really mostly from the youth. They argue with us, cannabis is not harmful, it's not this, so we now have to give them evidence-based facts that cannabis can actually damage the brain over a period of time. If you're met, it will make your bones brittle. After a while, you lose all your teeth and things like that. So we use social media, we use actual one-to-one counseling, we do advocacy, we do sensitization, we work with other agencies and departments of government to do that. And now we're actually we now have these pamphlets that we do, signs and symptoms, which we're trying to give to parents and people who don't even know if their children are dependent on drugs. So we tell them, look, these are the symptoms to look for, maybe not going to school, being mood swings, things like that. So these are the things we now tell parents. So these are the things that NDLA is doing. And also we have other agencies like NACA, we have ND, which I must talk about because that's the National Directorate for Employment. Most times when people are dependent on drugs, and which is one thing I would love to see on drug day, is that when people are dependent on drugs, for example in school, they test you for the drugs and they fling you out. Kofi Annan once said, and I want to quote him, he said that it is true that drug causes harmful effects, but wrong drug policies have harmed people even much more. And so we need to be careful about the policies that we actually initiate or that we put out. For example, if a child is dependent on drugs, take him out from school. His test said, put him in rehab. Once he's been put back from rehab, put him back into the school, because if you throw him out of school, for heaven's sake, he's just going to get into more drugs. And how does he continue life? The essence of putting somebody in rehab or treating the person is not to ruin his life, it's to make the life of the person better. So we're not trying to change people and think there's got to be a new way, a new approach to dealing with people who are dependent on drugs. So form of rehabilitation, what we're now encouraging is that, yes, test people, and so the NDA, what it does is social integration. When you come out, or maybe you've been out of school over a period of time and you can't get back in, what we go to ND and then teach you skills. And lately, they taught a lot of people hairdressing, makeup, computer trading, how to repair computers and mobile phones. And it's actually, it's slow. If they're better funded, I'm sure they'll do a better job. But they trained a lot of people last year, and kudos to them, because a lot of those people, even though they couldn't get back into school, and a lot of people say that they are miscreants on the street, but nobody really is a miscreant. They are just an outcome of the experiences that you've had. And what we need to do is to do more social integration to make sure that we get a lot more people off. And when people see by example what you're doing, it's usually better to people actually come and say, okay, yes, my friend has been helped. I also need help. So basically, I think that is the right way to go. I think we need to change our policies when it comes to dealing with drug-dependent persons. We need to help them. If a guy in the ministry has diabetes or blood pressure, you're not going to send him out of the place. You say, go and get help, and he comes back. You send him to the clinic. If a guy is drug-dependent, let him get well, bring him back so you can rehabilitate him, so he doesn't become a misfit to society, and you don't ruin his source of livelihood.
Very much, DG. And Mr. Pritchard, we have reactions already from our viewers who would like to read them to you as we round up the program this morning. Dele Jack Solomon has this tweet: expeditious and diligent prosecution of drug offenders will decrease cases of illicit and laws dealing with drug offenses. Such need to be reviewed.
Now, Sani Michael Omokoji says, if only our society will not be involved in aiding and abating illicit drugs, human trafficking, this evil will not be minimized.
From Clifford Agugwesi, we have this one. If the NDLEA does not have the resources to recruit more staff, will it not be willing to welcome some Nigerians to volunteer? And he continues, there is a need to target drug handlers and ensure that they have requisite knowledge. Also from Clifford, there is a need to target drug handlers. That's what I just read. Okay, and then moving forward, we have Michael Omakaju once more. And he says most of these drugs are imported into Nigeria by some so-called business mogul. How do they beat our security at the borders? Clifford again has this one. The fight is not going to be easy, as evidence has shown that law enforcement agents are involved in this drug abuse. And Law Alpha says government before now had been lax in tackling. I think daily zone is what we have to. Despite the huge, seeming huge catch, the drug trade is indeed booming in Nigeria because of lack of zeal by agency and judiciary to prosecute offenders. And Law Alpha too says governments before now had been lax in tackling the proliferation of illicit drugs in the country. And at this point, we are ending, of course, the conversation for this segment of Good Morning Nigeria, and I would like to thank the Director General of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Mrs. Rolly Bode George. Thank you, ma'am, for being part of our show this morning.
Wish you all a drug-free life.
And also Mr. Glenn Pritchard, the representative of the United Nations Office for Drug and Crime. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. All right, Blessing, the next is sports now. Yes, we have some sporting stories as we join our correspondents.